let's do this thing. For Mother's Day, we've picked a story called Operation Travel Dads. That's dumb. Sequoia, this is dumb. Whoops. Oh well. Okay, let's do this. Operation Travel Dads. Oh well. Nice. Okay, I'm gonna stop looking at the chat, and I'm gonna read this story. Molly has tagged this adventure/romance, and she's left an author's note at the top, and it says, "Now I understand what all those authors feel when they have to get an idea out now. This came to me at 11 p.m. and I wrote until about 1 a.m. Here it is, I guess. And this is a great idea. I am very pro this story, and I'm very excited. Here we go. Operation Travel Dads." For some reason, this morning, the Death Eater resurgence was on Arthur's mind. It was a horrible and violent time, and uprooted many families, but many years had passed since then. And he would always love Molly, of course, but she had gone hysterical and ran off during the crisis, and he'd been living alone at the burrow since then. Well, not quite alone. There were the gnomes. Anyway, he was mostly used to it now, but it still got really quiet when none of his children were visiting. It was times like these that he would go outside and jangle his gnome collar, a brilliant invention given to him by Luna Lovegood. He just loved seeing those squat little faces pop up and start shouting, "Booger! Arse! Bloody hell!" As he chuckled to himself, he saw the familiar curly brown hair of his granddaughter Rose running down the lane. She was followed by Hermione. He put away his gnome collar and stepped down from the porch to greet them. "What a splendid surprise," he said vacantly. "Yes," Hermione replied. "This is about a surprise." He looked at her, stunned. "You're expecting? Again? So soon?" Arthur glanced at Hermione's belly, trying to determine how far along she could be. He wondered if she really wanted such a big family. No, silly. It's a surprise for you. I think it's time you got out of the house. It's been years. I know you're retired, but you should be enjoying the world beyond this garden fence, which needs repairing, by the way." "Oh," Arthur started nervously. "I'm not so sure about that." "Well, will you be sure when I show you this?" Hermione pulled an envelope out of her cloak and handed it over. He opened it slowly, getting distracted for a moment by Rose, who was now bopping gnomes on the head. He read it over, examined it close, and read it over again. "Hermione, you can't be serious. But I couldn't begin to go... what if I mess up somehow? I don't know all the customs." "You won't mess up because I've arranged a travel companion for you." "I couldn't impose on a stranger. Now," Hermione continued with a bossy tone. "No strangers, just, well, my dad." "Oh, Dr. Granger. Well, I do so enjoy his company, as you know. Are you sure? Does he want to accompany me?" Arthur looked at her, uncertain hope filling him. "Of course he does," she assured him. "He doesn't have a choice," she added under her breath. "Wow. America with Dr. Granger. You know, Hermione, I think this is just the ticket," he said, winking and holding up the airline ticket. "A passage of time." We've got a lot of tildes here. A lot of tildes and a passage of time. Here we go. Later that night, around the dinner table, Ron and Hermione were discussing their plan. "So," started Ron, "is Operation Travel Dads a go?" "We are not calling it Operation Travel Dads." "Oh, come now," he said, squeezing Hugo on the shoulder and pointedly looking at Hermione. "Hugo said every mission needs an operation name. I'm actually thinking about bringing that idea to the Auror's office tomorrow, in fact. Can you imagine the look on Malfoy's face when I tell him he has to complete Operation Idiot Ferret Infiltration by Monday?" "Ron, stop it." But she smiled at him. "Well, all right. Operation Travel Dads is a go." "Yes!" Ron and Hugo high-fived. My father will pick up Arthur in the morning in his muggle car, so I'm sure your dad will be quite pleased. He will. Plus, this whole trip has been planned using one of those, secret agents, right? All muggle tourist spots? Hermione chuckled. Travel agents, Ron, not secret agents, but yes, they'll be starting in Graceland and moving on to New Orleans and Austin, riding hot air balloons in New Mexico, and then finishing up in Vegas. A real old guy kind of trip, you know? Whatever you say, dear. I can't believe we didn't think of this sooner. I know my dad has been so lonely and sort of stuck since Mom left. And after the surfing accident last year with your mom, your father hasn't been himself. This is just the thing to liven them up. The passage of time. Dr. Granger was busy keeping all the paperwork Hermione had forged for Mr. Weasley to travel in a neat, organized file, while the man in question bombarded him with inquiries. What are those men in yellow vests out there doing? Ah, I see. They have sort of large orange wands. Is that what makes the aeroplane lift up? Dr. Granger sighed heavily. He had yet to decide if this trip was really a good idea. Those aren't wands. They're just used to direct traffic. Come on, we have to get our bags checked quickly. The flight was long, with Arthur on full alert, asking about anything and everything. He was so excited to be in a real airplane, and it was beginning to be somewhat infectious. Perhaps they would get along better than he'd thought. At least it took his mind off of Jean. You know, Arthur, I think this is going to be a jolly good time. You, me, and the wild blue yonder. And it would be. The passage of time. It happened fast, in a series of moments too small to be noticeable, but too precious to forget. Graceland. The Heartbreak Hotel had a look-alike convention scheduled for the same weekend they arrived. Their booking had been given to a rather fabulous Elvis drag queen, and they had ended up having to share a room with a single king bed. No trouble, of course. They were both amicable about it, but in the early hours of the morning, it was nice to feel a warmth next to them in bed again. New Orleans. Dr. Granger was very interested in the history of voodoo in the area, and they had found some nice authentic shops to peruse and ask questions. The last shop they entered, Arthur pointed out, was a bit too authentic. A true American witch ran this store. She offered to read their tarot cards, and Dr. Granger thought it would be so amusing that he convinced Arthur to go along with it. Just a relatively cheap 3-card draw. The last of which, revealing the future, was the lovers. Arthur and Dr. Granger made eye contact and stared into each other's glassy orbs for a moment, confused. Austin! Mr. Weasley had heard tales from others on their tour of something called a mechanoble. He begged Dr. Granger to find one he could try. It sounded so fun. After the briefest of Google searches, they found the closest mechanical bull in a bar not far from the hotel they stayed in. Separate beds this time. Arthur must have been thrown off the bull a dozen times or more. But each time, laughing, he would get back up onto it for another go. Dr. Granger watched him, amused. How long have you two been together, then? A man in chaps and spurs asked. Well, we've been traveling for a couple weeks now, but I've known him years and years. No, silly. Wait, you mean you aren't together? What? Dr. Granger looked flabbergasted. No, I mean, I'm not. What made you think, honey, you've got a big storm coming, the man in chaps said, smiling. Bless your sweethearts. And he turned and walked away, revealing that the chaps were, in fact, assless. Dr. Granger scanned the room. Couples everywhere. All men. He'd brought them to a gay bar. Grabbing Arthur out of the bull pit, he led them out and back to the hotel. But I wanted another go, Arthur said, like a child at an amusement park. Those gentlemen were all so very nice. New Mexico! Nothing at all went amiss here, but they did have a hot air balloon ride at sunset. Arthur was so excited he grabbed Dr. Granger by the hand, and they held each other as the sun beamed its spectacular colors across the open sky. Las Vegas. They saw shows, and Mr. Weasley tried his hand at gambling, only a little. And one drunken night back in their hotel room, Arthur put on the rhinestone jumpsuit and golden cape he had acquired at the beginning of their trip and started to sing Love Me Tender while gyrating his hips closer and closer to where Dr. Granger was sitting. And, well, you know the phrase. What happens in Vegas? A passage of time. Hermione and Ron were waiting outside the Heathrow terminal to pick up their dads from their American adventures. How do you think it went? Ron said, nervously craning his neck over the crowd looking for them. I hope my dad didn't annoy yours too much. I know he can be pestering when it comes to muggle things. We got several postcards that said they were having a lovely time. I'm sure it was fine. Hermione ignored Ron, who was now pacing back and forth. She glanced over at the dark alcove where the stairs coming down from baggage claim were, and thought she saw a familiar face. But no, this was a couple. She pulled out some glasses, whispered Amplio under her breath, and put them on. She immediately took them off again. Ron, she hissed. Come back, I see them. I think we can say our plan worked out well. Possibly a little, too well? She handed him the glasses and pointed to the alcove. Ron put on the glasses and saw, magnified, clear as day, his father and Dr. Granger locked in an embrace and kissing. He whipped the glasses off his face. That wasn't real. Can't be. Can it? He asked Hermione with a look of confusion. I think it very much is. But if they... wait, we would be... Ron was stammering, his face a frozen look of shock. Best if we don't think too hard on it, dear. And with that, Hermione began walking toward her father and her father-in-law, calling out and welcoming them home. The end. Oh, Manzy. That's a good story, isn't it? So good. Ugh. Such amazingly wholesome crack. Wholesome crack. The best genre. Amazing. Incredible. That was... it's a crack pairing. Dad/dad. It can be canon and also a crack pairing. Oh. So I'm not sure if Molly was here, but thank you, Molly, for sending us that. It was so fun. You could be both, probably. Oh, man. That was a little bit shorter than I thought it would be. Maybe I should do another one. What do you think, Sequoia? I could read the shorter one of my two. What does the chat think? Oh god, where'd the chat go? Ah! Yes, maybe I should. Okay, let me see if I can find it. This is gonna be me Googling my own fanfiction? That's fine. Guys get to watch me Googling myself. I'm gonna read the shorter one. Play the damn game. It's the first fanfiction I ever wrote, actually. Don't worry about it. I found it. This is a nice short one. I actually wrote this one for Sequoia, and it's kind of about Sequoia, so. It's called Play the Damn Game. This was a prompt I came up with. Was that the third episode? Good God. Anyway, I wrote this a long time ago, and I'm gonna read it now. I tagged this humor, friendship, and mystery. It's fine. Let's do this thing. Play the damn game. Angelina stared blearily at the mug of tea in front of her. Had she added sugar yet? Her memory said no, so she spooned some in and watched it dissolve. She took a careful sip of the hot beverage and nearly spit it back out. Yes, she had already added sugar, and a very generous helping at that. Hey, Fred, you want some gross tea? She offered the mug in his direction. Pass, grunted the redhead. Also pass, George interjected as she turned to proffer the mug in his direction. She heaved a sigh and pushed the mug away before grabbing a fresh one. It's too bloody early, she muttered as she poured herself some more tea. Can't see how Oliver thinks us getting up so early helps our chances any. And where is he anyway? Sleeping in while the rest of us suffer? He's gone down to the pitch already. Says he wants to check the conditions so he can work out the best strategy, replied George. And the others? I haven't seen anyone but the three of us so far. Harry's down there, Fred pointed down the table to their seeker. He was sitting alone, looking green and poking at some eggs. No sign of the girls, though. Thought you'd have seen them. Alicia was already gone when I got up. I'm surprised she's not down here, actually. Angelina looked around again, but there was still no sign of the other chasers. The twins shrugged and went back to eating. A quick cooling charm allowed Angelina to gulp down the rest of her tea before pushing back from the table. I guess I'll go see if the others have joined Oliver. I wanted to go over a couple maneuvers with them before Oliver starts his lecture. See ya. She gave the twins a wave and headed out of the Great Hall, pausing along the way to clap Harry on the shoulder. See you in a bit, Potter. He responded with a non-committal grunt, and Angelina continued on her way. She thought that he didn't have much reason for pregame nerves. He was a natural, one of the best flyers she'd ever seen. Although, thinking about it, he did have a knack for suffering from strange mishaps on the pitch. But Dumbledore had chased the Dementors off, so at least that wouldn't be a problem this time. Alicia must have grabbed her broom for her that morning, as it wasn't there when she got up, so she didn't need to go back up to Gryffindor Tower to get it. She passed through the entrance hall and out into the pre-dawn chill of outside. The ground was hard with frost as she crunched down to the locker rooms, and her breath steamed in front of her. The sky was clear, and it looked like conditions were going to be perfect for the game. As she approached the pitch, she spotted Wood standing on the field, going through his pregame rituals. She knew that if she interrupted him, his preparations would be ruined, so she headed instead into the Gryffindor locker room. Her broom sat with Alicia's and Katie's, but her teammates were nowhere in sight. Angelina was now starting to feel a little annoyed with them. They usually spent their time before games getting prepared together, so where were they? Why hadn't they included her in their plans? She knew that she could be a little cranky in the mornings, but they weren't avoiding her, were they? Grumbling a little to herself, Angelina began to get dressed on her own. She had just finished strapping on the last of her padding when Fred, George, and Harry arrived. She pushed her thoughts about the other girls out of her mind and chatted with her other teammates about what they thought they could expect in today's match against Ravenclaw. Shortly, Wood marched in, filled with his usual Quidditch mania. All right, men and Wait, where are the rest of our women? Wood frowned at them. I haven't seen either of them all morning. Their brooms are here, though, so I was hoping you would have seen them? Angelina's feelings of annoyance started to morph into concern. What if something had happened to the girls? The Slytherins weren't above sabotage. What if they had done something to her friends? I guess I may have seen them earlier. Wood's reply was unconvincing. The team knew how hyper-focused he always got about Quidditch. At any rate, we're running short on time, and I have a lot of bludger play to go over before the game. The twins groaned. I'll get started. An excruciating lecture about the proper beating techniques to employ against the Ravenclaw side later, Alicia and Katie had not arrived. The rest of the school had, though. The team could hear the buzz of students heading to their seats. Realizing that he was still down 2 players, Wood was beginning to get frantic. I'll have to ask Madam Hooch to delay the game. We don't have any relief players. Where could they be? We'll need to look for them. He was pacing quickly around the locker room, talking mostly to himself. Can you all go ask your friends to look? I need you all to stay close in case Hooch says we can't wait. The team nodded in agreement, faces grim, as they all considered the prospect of playing 2 women down. It would be painful, but if Harry could finish the game quickly enough, not impossible? Still, they wanted to avoid that outcome. The twins and Harry hurried off to find people to look. Angelina hesitated. Who would she ask? Katie and Alicia were her 2 best friends. There wasn't anyone else that she was close with. Resolving herself to just ask whoever was close by, she exited the locker room. Standing outside, she heard a noise that the thick walls between the house's areas had muffled before. A girlish scream was coming from the Hufflepuff locker room. Hufflepuff wasn't playing today, so there shouldn't be anyone in there, she thought. The screams grew louder, and Angelina realized with horror that her fears from before must have been correct. Something horrible was happening to her friends. Fearing a trap, she grabbed Wood and gestured toward the door. Oliver, someone's screaming in there. We need to get in there. Wood heard the noise and, realizing the implications, raised his wand and nodded. Together, they crept towards the door. Angelina pressed lightly on it. It was locked. She gave Wood a significant glance, then held up 3 fingers. She counted down slowly, then, after Wood silently cast the unlocking charm, blasted the door in. They both burst in, wands up to deal with the would-be saboteurs. The screaming was cut off with a gasp. Wood and Angelina screamed instead. Katie and Alicia screamed in response, and quickly tried to disentangle themselves while also trying to cover their mostly naked bodies. They had not been attacked by Slytherins, and they were not being tortured. Oliver turned bright red and began sputtering. Angelina, also blushing heavily, grabbed him by the arm and wheeled him around so he was facing away from the indecent display. She then turned back to her friends. This is where you've been all morning? I've been worrying myself sick. I was afraid something had happened to you, that you'd been attacked, that the Slytherins had... Angelina was just starting to work up a good shout when Wood cut her off. Game starting! Get dressed! Go, just go play the damn game! He stormed out of the room. After some hurried pulling on of Quidditch gear, Angelina followed Alicia and Katie outside. Your jersey's on backwards, Katie, she muttered. Katie let out a nervous laugh and started to struggle with the garment. We're really sorry, Alicia began. Not now, Alicia. Here, Katie, let me help. Angelina began helping Katie with the straps on her pads. Thanks, Katie murmured, giving her a quick hug once the uniform was set right. Alicia joined the hug, sandwiching Angelina between the 2 of them. Ugh. Lesbians, Angelina said with a wry smile, and the girls all laughed. The end.